Hello. In this week's Torah portion, Vayigash, Joseph finally reveals his identity to his brothers as follows, quote, Ani Yosef Achicha, I am Joseph your brother, whom you sold into Egypt. And now do not be distressed or blame yourselves for selling me here, because it was to save lives that God sent me ahead of you. It is now 2 years that there has been famine in the land, and there are still 5 years to come, in which there shall be no yield from tilling. But God has sent me ahead of you to ensure your survival on earth and to save your lives in an extraordinary deliverance. So then it was not you who sent me here, but God. And so do not be afraid. You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, so as to bring about the present results, the survival of many people. And so fear not. I will sustain you and your children. End of quote. So it was all for the greater good that Joseph had to suffer. Here we are told that God's plan for the many sometimes require that the few suffer. Many people believe everything that happens ultimately serves a worthy purpose, even the most terrible calamities. A first century rabbi was called Nahum Ish Gamzu because he always said, Gamzu letova, this too is for the good, in spite of the many tragedies that befell him in his life. One of his students, the great Rabbi Akiva, followed in his footsteps and used to say, Kol de aved rahamana letav aved. Everything God does is for the good. To wit, after God created the world, didn't he say, it is very good? Vayar Elokim et kol asher asa vehine tov meod. And God saw all that he had made, and behold, it was very good. Didn't the psalmist write the line we repeat every day in the Ashrei? Tov Hashem lakol verachamav hal kol ma'asav. The Lord is good to all, and his mercy is all over his works. There are sources of the belief that nature optimizes everything to get the best possible outcome. This is where the word optimism comes from. But let's examine the matter a little more deeply. Is this attitude any more than the mind's propensity to see patterns in the events around us, to invest things with meaning, whether this meaning is really there or not? After all, life is a collection of happy events and sad events, good things and bad things. Some good things are bound to happen sooner or later. When they happen, how hard is it to trace the chain of events that led to them and say, aha, if this bad thing hadn't happened in the past, this good thing would not have happened today. If the Egyptians hadn't enslaved us, the Jewish people would never have grown to the numbers sufficient to start a new nation. Indeed, in Egypt, a superpower protected them, whereas in the Holy Land, any nearby small kingdom could have easily wiped out Jacob's small clan. If the temple hadn't been destroyed, Judaism would have continued to be centered in a single site, focusing on animal sacrifices, rather than in synagogues, focusing on prayer, study, and spiritual matters. If we hadn't been expelled from Spain and so many other places, we would not have acquired so much new knowledge, would not have brought new skills to the world at large, and would not have been as determined to excel just to get equal treatment. If the Holocaust hadn't happened, the world would never have allowed the establishment of the State of Israel and would have smothered it in its crib. If the State of Israel wasn't under perpetual siege and surrounded by implacable enemies, it would not have retained its Jewish character, intermarriage with Arabs would have soared, and internal feuding between secular and religious factions would have reached a boiling point. If I had not been forced out of Egypt with only the shirt on my back, I would never have met my wife, had my children and grandchildren, and led as fulfilling and satisfying a life as the one I was blessed with. And so on. It's always possible to say things like that, so whether one thinks the price was worth it or not. But it also works in reverse. People can single out a bad thing that happened to them, trace the chain of events that led to it, and find a good thing to blame for it. For example, If I had not met this wonderful girl last week, I would not have been in such a hurry to go see her today and would not have had this terrible car accident. However, while it's always possible to see a pattern, one does not have to. We can ask ourselves, why did Joseph let his brothers off the hook so easily by invoking divine intervention? He didn't have to. He told them, don't worry and don't feel guilty. It was all God's plan. He could have told them, you did me a terrible wrong and you should be ashamed of yourselves. But I will not seek revenge. Instead, I will give you the means to survive the famine because I'm not evil like you. But he didn't. The sinners were even rewarded for their sin. Is this the proper way to confront those who have done evil to us, even if we really think God engineered it all for his plan? Doesn't the Torah enjoin us to rebuke our neighbors when they do something wrong? Yes, it says in Leviticus, quote, you shall surely rebuke your neighbor. Can we perhaps argue that God directed the brothers' evil action for his plan, and so as mere puppets they're not guilty? But Judaism teaches that when God decrees that bad things will befall us, he does not decree who will make them happen. And those who make them happen using their free will be punished. What about free will? The same Rabbi Akiva tells us in the Mishnah, Hakol tzafui v'harshut netuna. Everything is foreseen and freedom of choice is given. As a physicist, I like to think that everything is foreseen means everything that there is to foresee is foreseen. Quantum mechanics tells us that all that there is to foresee are the probabilities of events occurring. These probabilities are not certainties. This leaves room for free will. Can we say then that when our free will causes us to do something forbidden, God makes sure that some good comes out of it down the line? Maybe so far down the line that we can't see it in our lifetime? Or is it all just a matter of our own attitude in interpreting events? Are we creating at least some of the resulting goods by having a positive outlook? There are many unknowns here. This allows us to view life in a lot of different ways. Yes, it is possible to argue that good things always emerge from bad things, even if the logic sometimes strains credulity. It is possible to argue the opposite also. In the absence of a definitive answer, looking for the good is not a bad attitude to have, provided it does not lead to fatalism and the passive acceptance of bad things, without people doing their utmost to prevent them from happening. Shabbat Shalom.